Fish are jumping and the curtain is high. Oh, your daddy's rich and your mama's good looking. So hush, little baby, don't you cry. One of these mornings, you're gonna rise up singing. Then you'll spread your wings and you'll take to the sky. But till that morning, there's nothing can harm you. With Daddy and Mommy standing by. Summertime and the living is easy. Fish are jumping and the curtain is high. Oh, your daddy's rich and your mama's good looking. So hush, little baby, don't you cry. One of these mornings, you're gonna rise up singing. Then you'll spread your wings and you'll take to the sky. But till that morning, there's nothing can harm you. With Daddy and Mommy standing by.
Go to the bathroom. Right on. Good day. My name is Matt Alspaugh, and I'm the minister at the Lake Chapala Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. Our chalice lighting words today are by Reverend Greg Ward, Unitarian Universalist minister. If we are lucky, we will get a chance during our life to know someone who becomes for us an exemplar of living. And if we are really lucky, we will recognize how they ended up passing on some of their goodness to us, if we are lucky. But one thing is certain, no one, not one of us, entering this world can escape the cost of living. The price we pay is this: to live in this world, we must accept that someday we will have to die. To love what is alive we must accept having to lose what we've made precious through our care. To be fully and fiercely human, we must accept having to be breakable and sometimes broken. When we stop to notice how our life gave us a path and a little light to see by, it helps to encourage us to help carry that light forward. Though each of us carries forth in this world a small flame, we know that the ability of that light to brighten the world depends upon the many others who learn to walk with it in their hearts. We light this chalice today to honor the life and living of a truly bright light, Howard Frederick. And so we are here to celebrate the life and mourn the death of Howard Frederick, professor, teacher, entrepreneur, activist, husband, father, sister, uncle, and friend. Well, he wasn't a sister, brother. He was a brilliant man, energetic, caring, full of care for his students and his family, passionate about helping the marginalized and oppressed the world over. Let us remember the span of his life, a rich life full of joys and adventure, but suddenly cut short. We miss him. Let us draw strength and comfort from each other's company. And here at the beginning, let me say a few words about grief. My friends, we are gathered here this afternoon as one family bound together by our loss, united by our grief at the death of Howard Frederick, and by our gratitude to be counted among those whose lives he touched. The great minister and theologian Howard Thurman tells us, "I share with you the agony of your grief. The anguish of your heart feels echo in my own. I know I cannot enter all you feel, nor bear with you the burden of your pain. I can but offer what my love does give, the strength of caring, the warmth of one who seeks to understand the silent, storm-swept barrenness of such a loss. This I do in quiet ways, that on your lonely path you need not walk alone." So we are here to hold one another. We are here to sympathize. We are here to understand one another. But even so, there is one thing we should all understand about grief. There's no one right way to grieve. We all grieve differently and at different times. Grief comes in waves, sometimes so present that functioning can be difficult, other times bringing on a dull numbness that causes us to question the depth of our feelings and loyalty. All these are natural parts of the grieving process. The task of grieving is paradoxical. It is to hold on to the parts of Howard that will be ours forever, the stories, the memories, and pieces of his humanity that are our inheritance, and at the same time to honor what we have lost without diminishing those profound losses. We need to know that whenever we lose someone we love, it brings back every other loss we have suffered. Though each of us needs time to grieve alone, we need to return to our communities of friends and family. From them, we seek the support of shared experience. In the end, each of us finds our own way. Grief is not something we get over. Instead, time teaches us to weave each loss into the fabric of our lives. Together, as we weave this fabric, we hold each other in our grief. And we hold this family in the midst of their loss, and we are reminded that life is a fragile gift.
It is my honor to read The Road Not Taken, which was written by Robert Frost. Two roads diverged in the yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both and be one traveler. Long I stood and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth, then took the other just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim because it was grassy and wanted wear, though as for that, the passing there had worn them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day. Yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I would ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference.
es la tristeza de mis ojos que lloran en silencio por tu amor. Me miro en el espejo y veo en mi rostro el tiempo que he sufrido por tu adiós. Obligo a que te olvide el pensamiento, pues siempre estoy pensando en el ayer. Prefiero estar dormida que despierta, de tanto que me duele que no estés. Como quisiera que tú vivieras, que tus ojitos jamás se hubieran cerrado nunca y estar mirándolos, amor eterno, inolvidable. Tarde o temprano estaré contigo para seguir amándonos. Yo he sufrido tanto por tu ausencia. Desde ese día hasta hoy no soy feliz. Y aunque tengo muy tranquila mi conciencia, sé que pude haber yo hecho más por ti. Oscura soledad estoy viviendo, la misma soledad de tu sepulcro. Tú eres el amor del cual yo tengo el más triste recuerdo de Acapulco. Como quisiera que tú vivieras, que tus ojitos jamás se hubieran cerrado nunca y estar mirándolos, amor eterno, inolvidable. Tarde o temprano estaré contigo para seguir amándonos.
Although I came to know Howard only in the last few weeks of his life, I've enjoyed getting to know him through his family and friends. Kathy Coaches and I will share a few remembrances offered by them. This is from Kathleen Interante, cousin Posey. My cousin Ricky was a thoughtful, tender man. We shared the love of family history and enjoyed playing detective, searching for elusive clues to discover relatives, many with rich, colorful backgrounds. Ricky was a passionate man who deeply loved his wife, daughter, and sister. He is greatly missed, but we are all richer for having had him in our lives.
This is from Peter Hebert, a high school buddy. I first met Howard when my family moved to Indio in 1964. I enrolled as a sophomore at Indio High School while Howard who was the same age, was a year ahead of me as a junior. He left after that first year to become a foreign exchange student in Salzburg, Austria. He returned to finish his senior year with me. We shared several classes together that year, but more to the point, we became good friends. To this day, I can't remember who won or lost more during our legendary Saturday poker games. I do remember well the time that Howard and I cut school, drove to Los Angeles, and spent the evening hawking copies of the LA Free Press on Sunset Boulevard to anyone that wanted one. Somehow we both graduated and went our separate ways. Howard went off to Stanford, and I left our small desert town to attend Columbia in New York. After college, our paths crossed less frequently, but still memorably. His passing is a deep loss to his family, but also to his large family of friends. I will miss him.
This is from Philip Farron, a high school friend. I first met Howard at the Indio Public Library in 1962. He noticed the books I was reading, books not common to high school students, and commented. I told him that reading in a variety of different fields was part of a great education. He took that to heart, asked my suggestions for good books, and we began a lifelong friendship. Howard even came to visit me in Germany when I was in the Army, and we hung out in San Francisco during the 1970s, going to dinner in Chinatown often. I consider Howard one of the finest human beings I've known, worthy of a lifelong friendship. He is missed.
This is from John Higgins, who taught with Howard at Ohio State University. I first met Howard when he joined the faculty of the School of Telecommunications at Ohio University in 1983. We became close buddies, traveling together on seminars in political communication and revolutionary societies he co-organized to Nicaragua and Cuba in the mid-1980s, and serving as videographers for the Latin American Studies Association delegation observing the 1984 Nicaraguan general election. I clearly remember Howard weaving his way across crowded moving traffic in Managua on foot like he was playing the game of Frogger, much to the amazement of us observing him. Our shared interest extended to technology. Howard was the first person I exchanged an email with in the late 1980s. I recall the thrill of getting a reply from him in Germany only hours after sending an electronic message. Howard was amazingly focused on the positive. He was a wonderfully and unique guy and a good friend. I miss him dearly.
This is from Wolfgang Kleinwachter, a German friend and colleague. Howard and I had a long relationship starting in the middle of the 1980s. When I was in Washington and when he was in Leipzig, we did feel like brothers. He approached me during a conference in Prague in 1984 and asked whether I could help him get a research fellowship for East Germany. We were able to include Howard for a 1985 fellowship. It was a great time. The revolutionary changes which paved the way to the 1989 and the fall of the Berlin Wall started already at this time in Leipzig. In November of 1989, when Howard was teaching in Salzburg, he stopped on his way to Berlin to see the open wall live at my house in Leipzig. He invited my whole family to Salzburg. This became our first family trip to the West. It was a very good coincidence that Howard came to Washington at the same time when I got a guest professorship at the SIS American University 1993 to 1995. We shared one apartment for nearly 2 years. When I went back to Leipzig and pushed in those early days of the internet for a Saxonian Information Initiative, SII, analog to the United States National Information Infrastructure Initiative, NII, I convinced the Saxonian authorities to reach out for a U.S. CEO and proposed Howard as the man. It worked great in the beginning of 1996 and 1997. In 1998, I moved to the University of Aarhus and Howard to the University of Auckland. Best wishes, and take my deep condolences also from all his friends in Leipzig, in particular Professor Herbert Gronau, and from my own family.
This is from Abbas Malik, a friend from Washington, D.C. This is Abbas from Maryland. I really don't know how to express my sadness and shock. Howard and I were not only close family, classmates, social, life buddies, we both considered each other a brother. I know you are going through a lot, and wanted just to tell you that I lost a brother.
This is from Kevin Hindle, an Australia professor friend. The first night I ever had a long talk and walk with Howard was on a freezing cold evening in London in the year 2000. He was such an intriguing and interesting man. We were both the head representatives of our countries, then New Zealand for Howard, for a newly founded international research project. We were walking back from some evening dinner around the perimeter of Regent's Park with steam billowing from every spoken word, and given it was Howard and me, there were plenty of them. We finally came in from the cold at an inviting pub where we shared a pint or two. Howard wore and kept wearing inside an ear-muffling Eastern European hat, something like a Russian soldier's forage cap. When he told me about spending time in East Germany, I immediately accused him of being the spy who came in from the cold, a member of the Stasi who had been sent to subvert New Zealand. It was our standing joke forever after. Howard, my old Stasi man, enjoy the rest that your atoms are now receiving before they recycle in some fabulous way. You are greatly missed.
This is from Ruth de Souza in New Zealand. I so appreciated Howard's generosity and hospitality. I'm grateful for the wonderful food he prepared with such enthusiasm and the conversations that we had, as well as the people he put in my orbit. I will treasure these memories and the fun times we had, and I send my love across many oceans to you, dear Hannah.
This is from Alex Maritz, a New Zealand and Australian colleague. Howard's inspiration touched the heart and soul of many students, colleagues, family, and friends, spanning over more than 25 years from his entrepreneurship education beginnings at Unitec, New Zealand. Not only was he an esteemed entrepreneurship education scholar, but a thriving opportunist and entrepreneur in his own right. His legacy as an entrepreneur continues with his previous business partners and good friends, Alex Maritz, Anton de Waal, and Dean Preble, who all met Howard in New Zealand over 20 years ago and remained ongoing. On a personal note, Howard introduced to me entrepreneurship and was an insightful mentor for close to 20 years. Condolences to Hannah and family from the Maritz family in Australia. God bless.
This is from Jasmine, a Mexican colleague of Howard's. I met Howard at the Tec de Mi campus, Puebla. He was a magnificent man, very nice, and a good friend, and an entrepreneur. A man who inspires me to always give my best and fight for my dreams. I remember him fondly.
This is from Darlene Nadeau and George Malouf, friends in Plymouth, New Hampshire. We remember Howard as a captivating and creative spirit. Howard was an academic innovator, an idea generator, and an inspiring force for many. He was a dedicated professor as well as a pioneer and leader in global entrepreneurship. Together with his loving wife, Hannah, they were both true world travelers and discoverers. Howard and Hannah were vibrant models of the good life, bon vivants, ever ready to taste new adventures. We miss their warm presence here in Plymouth, as well as their interesting conversations and playful charisma.
And finally, this is from Linda Barnes, minister at Star King UU Fellowship in Plymouth, New Hampshire. My memory of Howard is not an event, but a perception of Howard's spirit. Howard was a gentle soul. His eyes were kind, and yet his smile always seemed to show a subtle amusement, like he had the impression that the world was absurd, and still life was worth it. His love of Hannah was palpable. I saw it in the way they engaged with one another, familiar, with love, and with that same good humor at the absurdity of it all and their joy at being part of it. Howard was a delight to be around. Whether I saw him at our fellowship, out on the trail at Smarts Brook, or helping Hannah distribute delicious food, preparing food for others was her joy, and she was his joy. Rest in peace, gentle soul. Rest in peace, Howard.
There are many other remembrances of Howard that we could not include due to timing. Hannah will continue to gather those, and we will put together a collection of all of these and share with all of you. How can anyone sum up a life? Life is too precious, too beautiful, and too complex to be summed up in mere words. Words can ring hollow and empty, and yet in the midst of our confusion and grief, it is the words and the stories that we depend on. The memory of Howard's friends that Howard's friends share are a great gift. In this giving, we share and merge our memories and begin, as we grieve, to make sense of a life. And from that, we begin to make sense of our own lives and our place in the world. I thank many people, especially Howard's daughter, Carrie, his sister, Heidi, and his wife, Hannah, for their help with these words. Howard was born April 1st, 1949, yes, April Fool's Day, in Seattle, Washington. The family moved a lot in his early years, as his father was an engineer with the Army Air Force. They moved to Illinois, then to Eugene, Oregon, then to Indio, California, where they remained. Howard's dad was a quiet man, and his mom was outgoing. In Indio, on the low desert, they had a ranch where his dad raised horses and cattle. His mom had been a model and in movies, but bit parts mostly, and also a journalist. They balanced each other, and I think Howard inherited the best of both traits. As a kid, Howard was very close to his mom, and he enjoyed helping her in the darkroom, as she was an amateur photographer. In school, Howard excelled. He was a straight-A student and never really had to work hard to achieve that. His younger sister, Heidi, notes that it was a very hard act to follow, grade to grade, as teachers expected her to be as smart as Howard. Howard received many honors, and as a Boy Scout, he achieved the highest rank of Eagle Scout. But Howard was bored with high school, and when he saw a chance to go to Europe as part of the American Field Service Exchange Program, he jumped at it, as this was his ticket out of small-town life. His sister said he never really returned. Metaphorically, this was true. He was on a different road. Howard returned to California, however, and attended Stanford University, where he became enamored with social justice work. After school, he worked to promote draft resistance and an end to the war in Vietnam. It was in this work that he met his first wife, Claire Gorfinkel, in planning a demonstration to attempt to stop the carrier USS Enterprise from sailing to Vietnam. He used Claire's credit card to rent a bunch of rowboats, and they physically tried to prevent the ship from sailing out. But the Coast Guard came and upended their boats, leaving them floating in the icy waters of the San Francisco Bay. Howard was just this kind of direct action guy. Claire did forgive him, and they were married a year later in true hippie fashion in Golden Gate Park in San Francisco. Claire and Howard had a daughter, Carrie, a few years later. Howard went on to complete a master's at San Francisco State University and a PhD in international relations at the American University in Washington, D.C. Howard taught at many schools, among them Mary Baldwin College in Virginia, at Ohio State University, Cal State Riverside, and University of California at Irvine, Emerson College in Boston, Unitec in New Zealand, Deakin University in Australia, Tecnológico de Monterrey in Mexico. He could never get tenure anywhere. Perhaps part of that was his personality. He wouldn't play the university politics and conform to the expectations of academic life. His daughter, Carrie, says, and I quote, "I think he was just restless and maybe didn't want to settle down anywhere. He was always thinking about the next thing, the next place. He had wild ideas and dreams about what he wanted to do next, and with the exception of his wife, Hannah, he never seemed satisfied with what he had. Most of what I saw in him was a constant state of change, reinvention, dynamism." When I, Matt, reflect on these qualities, I think of many successful entrepreneurs I've worked with who were great at starting new companies, but terrible at staying with them. This seems to describe Howard. He did, in fact, have some entrepreneurial experiences, including an early email venture and a German information infrastructure initiative. Howard loved being a teacher. He wrote a textbook on global communications and international relations, now in its 5th edition. In midlife, he pivoted from communications to entrepreneurship and would go on to mentor budding entrepreneurs in the U.S., Latin America, and the Asia-Pacific region. He took great pride as his students won multiple national awards for their projects. Howard was an incredibly hard worker and very focused and very intelligent. His work in international business opened up great opportunities for travel. Carol recalls traveling with Howard and her mom on a research trip to Cuba. Now, this was in the 1980s, when travel to Cuba from the U.S. was forbidden, and they had to travel through Canada and then to Havana. Howard led several student groups to Cuba, where they explored the differences in communication policy and practices under Castro versus in the U.S. Howard had a deep love for Germany and Australia. In 1989, he and his daughter were in Austria when the Berlin Wall fell. He immediately hopped on a train to Berlin and was there in the early hours of the morning as the wall came down. She thinks this was probably one of the most exciting things he ever witnessed in his life. Now, Howard was a fearless traveler. He could just land in a city without an itinerary or a place to stay and just figure things out. He enjoyed the adventure, and he wasn't afraid to ask the locals for help or look silly. Now, it helped that he had a natural talent for languages. He was quite fluent in German and Spanish, but could pass in Italian and French, and even knew some Russian and Arabic. When he lived in New Zealand, later in life, he learned some Maori. I think that's 8 languages if you count English. Howard and Claire would go on to divorce in 1995. He met Hannah at American University in Washington, D.C. at a new professor's orientation. Hannah says they met in an elevator, and that elevator melted. They married in Las Vegas in 1998 at the Divine Madness Fantasy Chapel, dressed in roaring 20s attire. Such was their style. He was fascinated by fresh technologies and opportunities. This continued in his work in Latin America, where he got involved in filmmaking. And even when he arrived here at this fellowship, where he began to help us out both with our online service production and leading a website redesign. Now, Howard's main hobbies were cooking and eating. He loved to cook, especially Mexican cuisine. He was particularly good at making mole, which involves 30-something ingredients and takes all day to prepare. Howard and Hannah connected on food. He supported and encouraged Hannah's passion for chocolate making and entertaining. They opened a high tea salon in Melbourne, Australia, and Howard enjoyed being Hannah's right-hand man in service there. And here in Lakeside, the very last conversation I had with Howard was when we bumped into each other at the organic market, where he suggested that the fellowship could have a business at that market selling chocolate that he and Hannah would make from beans from his sources in Tabasco. Now, I ought to say a little bit about his political leanings. Howard had busts of Marx and Lenin on his desk at home and carried notes that it gave him joy, in a mischievous way perhaps, to indicate on voter forms that he was a socialist, communist, Marxist, Leninist. But I, Matt, have noted that here in Mexico, Marxism, Leninism is viewed differently than in the USA. I've even seen high school classrooms named after Marx and Lenin. So quite likely, Howard picked up a more international view of these philosophies and believed that the American aversion to communist theory was simply ridiculous. He also stated that he was an atheist, and perhaps for this, he found his way to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship in Athens, Ohio, and later to other UU congregations, most recently Star King UU Fellowship in Plymouth, New Hampshire, and then this fellowship here at Lakeside. Howard was a fearless optimist. In 2017, he was diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer. It hit him hard to be confronted with his mortality. But he tackled it the way he did everything else in his life. He put his mind to beating it, and in spite of a couple of setbacks, he did come out on the other side, cancer-free. He boasted about being a model patient and surprising his doctor with how easily and cheerfully he made it through chemo and brutal surgery. When asked about when he was going to retire, Howard sometimes joked that he would die in a classroom. There is some truth to that, in a way, for he did die sitting at his desk, his computer close at hand, perhaps even open to student and class materials. While it's sad that he didn't get a chance to fully enjoy his new life in retirement here in Mexico, I do like to think that he went out of this world doing what he loved. Brilliant, hardworking, focused, adventurous, mischievous, optimistic, caring, kind. These are the virtues that describe Howard's way in the world. Howard was a man that I've come to admire more and more as I've worked to put this service together. Howard had an optimistic, supportive view of the people around him and a hopeful outlook about the world, the whole world, for he was truly a man of the world. Let us learn from Howard, from his rich life, from his sudden and unexpected death. Life is transitory. Life is precious. The Howard Frost poem we heard was a favorite of Howard's. And I think that we can see now that it described the arc of his life. Two roads diverged in a wood, and he took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. And this is the message that I think Howard would have wanted us to hear, to choose the one less traveled by, the one you would travel, not all the other ones. And in that path, you will find your authentic self and live fully with no regrets. And now our closing prayer is by Reverend Laura Horton Ludwig. Spirit of life, Spirit of love, we come today carrying our grief, our memories, and our love. We gather from many places in the world, reaching out with our minds and our hearts to join in this most ancient of human customs, honoring one whom we loved who has died. In this moment, let us know that we are connected to all who have ever loved and mourned, going back through countless generations, reaching back into deep time. As time stops for a moment, and we are one with the eternal mystery of life and death. Breathing in the stillness, let us ground down and feel the deep earth supporting us and the trees overhead sheltering us. The sky above us all connecting us to the universe itself. We know so little where we come from or where we will go to when life is done. But breathing in the stillness, may we know that we are one, we are held, that love abides. Let us be in silence together, each adding our own silent prayers and meditations as our hearts lead us. May it be so. Amen.
When my river rhythm starts to play, dance with me, make me sway. Like a lazy ocean hugs the shore, hold me close, sway me more. Like a flower bending in the breeze, bend with me, sway with ease. When we dance you have a way with me, stay with me, sway with me. Other dancers might be on the floor, dear, but my eyes will see only you. Only you have that magic technique. When we sway, I go weak. I can hear the sounds of violins long before it begins. Make me thrill as only you know how. Sway me smooth, sway me now. Like a flower bending in the breeze, bend with me, sway with ease. When we dance you have a way with me, stay with me, sway with me. Other dancers might be on the floor, dear, but my eyes will see only you. Only you have that magic technique. When we sway, I go weak. I can hear the sounds of violins long before it begins. Make me thrill as only you know how. Sway me smooth, sway me